For 5 decades, the mission of the Drug Enforcement Administration has remained steadfast to enforce our nation's drug laws and protect our communities. From the emergence of new deadly drug threats to an increasingly globalized world, the dedicated men and women of the DEA have been boldly out front and risen to the challenge.
In the early 1970s, America grappled with the rise of heroin, cocaine, and marijuana in communities across the country. In response to this mounting crisis, in 1973, President Richard Nixon signed Reorganization Plan No. 2, consolidating drug control efforts that had previously been spread over multiple cabinet agencies and bureaus into one agency, the Drug Enforcement Administration.
America's public enemy number 1 in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. With regard to this offensive, it is necessary first to have a new organization.
The Drug Enforcement Administration's mission was clear: disrupt major trafficking networks, gather vital intelligence, regulate controlled substances, and equip local and international law enforcement with the tools needed to combat drug-related crime. For the first time, all U.S. law enforcement would work together under one centralized law enforcement agency.
When initially created, the DEA had less than 1,500 special agents and an operating budget of $75 million. Today, the agency has nearly 10,000 employees, including nearly 5,000 special agents, located in more than 241 offices in the United States and 93 foreign offices around the globe. DEA's 2023 operating budget was nearly $3.4 billion.
As the agency has grown, each decade has brought new challenges. DEA's early priorities included targeting heroin networks, like the French Connection, and drug traffickers like Nicky Barnes, known in New York City as Mr. Untouchable. Inaugural DEA Administrator John Bartels established the country's first national narcotics intelligence system, the El Paso Intelligence Center, EPIC, to collect and disseminate information to enforcement agencies across the country.
The agency's aviation division took flight in the early years, thanks in part to Special Agent Marion Joseph. Special Agent Joseph, an experienced Air Force pilot, analyzed the benefits of adding aviation capabilities and helped secure DEA's first plane. The 1980s introduced a new wave of challenges for America and the DEA. The explosion of cocaine, particularly in its smokable form, crack, inflicted widespread devastation in communities across the country.
DEA targeted and dismantled the Medellin and then the Cali drug cartels. And while DEA's work remained critical, it was no less dangerous. The brutal kidnapping, torture, and murder of Special Agent Enrique Kiki Camarena by the Guadalajara cartel intensified the agency's efforts to dismantle the criminal organizations responsible for such heinous acts. This included Operation Leyenda, which led to a massive manhunt for Kiki's killers.
Kiki is not the only special agent who has returned home or who will return home on his shield. He shall not fail to honor his trust in us.
Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo ultimately received decades-long prison sentences. In July 2022, Rafael Caro Quintero, who is believed to have ordered Kiki's kidnapping and murder, was captured for a second time.
In the 1990s, the global drug trade morphed into a sophisticated criminal enterprise, exploiting cutting-edge technology and communication networks. To counteract this, DEA introduced a kingpin strategy that targeted specific cartel leaders. This era saw triumphs, like the capture of Pablo Escobar and Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega. New criminal networks emerged to meet the relentless demand for illegal drugs.
At the start of the 21st century, the DEA pivoted its intelligence resources to uncover the nexus between drug traffickers and terrorist organizations, leading to an increased deployment of DEA special agents to Afghanistan to disrupt the opium trade.
In the 2010s, the agency took steps to combat rising prescription opioid misuse and diversion. DEA increased education for the registrant population, levied fines, and arrested rogue prescribers. As new psychoactive substances increased in popularity, DEA took quick action to classify and regulate these substances. The agency's forensic scientists worked diligently to identify emerging bath salts and synthetic cannabinoids, while enforcement operations targeted manufacturers and distributors. Major operations like Project Synergy dealt a substantial blow to the global synthetic designer drug market. In the mid-2010s, the cartel shifted from cultivating poppy to make heroin to purchasing precursor chemicals from China and synthesizing fentanyl in makeshift labs in Mexico. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and his Sinaloa cartel became a major target of DEA's national and international efforts, resulting in his arrest, extradition, and subsequent conviction in 2019.
Today, Americans are experiencing the most devastating drug crisis in our nation's history because illicit fentanyl has transformed the criminal landscape.
There are still many, many people in our country who do not understand the depth of this threat, who do not understand how deadly fentanyl is, who do not understand that this is something, this moment that we're in is a moment we have never been in before.
In 2022, the DEA seized enough fentanyl to kill every single person in the United States. The CDC estimates that in 2022, more than 110,000 Americans died from drug poisonings, almost 70% from fentanyl. DEA established the Faces of Fentanyl exhibit at DEA headquarters to display photos of lives lost to this epidemic. DEA's community outreach programs are reaching a record number of people with initiatives, including National Prescription Drug Take-Back Days, Red Ribbon, the DEA National and Regional Family Summits, Citizens Academies, Prevention and Awareness Day events, and the newly renovated DEA Museum. The dedicated work and selfless service of DEA's men and women, special agents, task force officers, diversion investigators, forensic scientists, intelligence research specialists, and support staff has been the bedrock of the agency's success.
It's work that has at times come at an immense cost. The DEA Wall of Honor, which itself has evolved over the past 5 decades, is a poignant tribute to the 68 brave DEA employees and task force officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in their work since July 1973. We honor them by continuing to fight for the cause to which they gave their lives and leading America's drug law enforcement efforts with integrity, commitment, and courage. DEA's work has never been more important than it is today, and the agency is once again meeting the moment to protect the American people now and in the years to come.